もちろんデスノートでね。
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
And this week we're talking about Death Note. But first, a clarification. Now, as it happens, in the 1970s, there were Iron Man comics that dealt with Iron Man attempting to reform Stark Industries because of its warmongering reputation and effect. And also in the 1980s, there was a run called Armor Wars, where Iron Man technology was distributed to criminals, and Iron Man had to find and take it back.
Okay.
I sounded like a total rube last week.
It was because of me. I was correcting you and saying that Steel had come up with these ideas before Iron Man. No. It was Iron Man first.
So,
okay.
Now that's out the way. Kumar, tell us about Death Note.
Okay, well, we should do a pause the podcast here.
Absolutely.
This is one of the most important pause the podcasts we've ever done.
For once, I'm prepared.
This show.
And I'm coming right out and saying, pause the podcast.
Pause the podcast. I would say, okay, this is a book that's full of twists and turns.
Oh, yeah.
On every 10 pages, some crazy shit happens, and you're like, oh my god. I would say track down these books either in digital or physical form, whatever. It's 12 volumes complete. I do recommend reading it with caveats, which we will talk about, but we're going to spoil it real bad.
We're going to spoil the hell out of this.
And the movies. We're going to spoil the movies real bad because we have to talk about
the movies are another matter.
Adaptations.
But for my part, I'm going to take a slightly different take and say, if you're not inclined to read 1,000 pages of manga, I suggest finding the anime series.
Okay.
My first exposure to this was the anime series, and it blew me away.
I think it's 37 episodes, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, if your preferred method of digesting a story is through, an animated series, rather than reading a comic, then I suggest you go and watch this. Don't listen to this episode.
Yes.
Watch or read Death Note, manga, or anime, then come back.
Yes, I would also say that Death Note, I think, has crossover appeal. When it was coming out in the early 2000s, it was getting noticed by media sites that weren't just the manga sites, like the regular comic
People like
sites.
this.
Yes.
I liked it. My wife liked it.
Yeah.
There's not usually a lot of overlap in that area.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Japanese cartoons about mass murdering magic wielders.
Yeah. Okay, so Death Note came out, I think it started around 2003.
Yes.
It was serialized in Shonen Jump. Now, that in itself is curious. It is not very Shonen Jumpy. It kind of subverts a lot of what we think about Shonen Jump.
Okay.
So Shonen Jump means, as we've discussed, especially in like the Dragon Ball episodes, friendship, effort, victory. And there is a kind of
action.
Yes, tons of action. Usually finding a magic object of some sort which sets things off.
Or pursuing, the Dragon Balls.
Yes. Here there is a kind of friendship at one stage, we'll talk about it later, where one character says to another, "You are my first friend," and is probably lying about it, according to the interview with the creators in Volume 13. It's like, that was a lie.
Well,
so there's your friendship. There's a lot of effort, but bizarrely, it's mostly on the part of the villain. Not sure how to code the victory in this thing. It's... Okay, well, maybe we should talk about a little bit about the plot, I guess.
Sure.
Okay, it's about this magical notebook which falls to the earth from another realm.
The Death Note.
The Death Note.
This is an example of Japanese English.
Yes.
Note means notebook.
Should be called Death Notebook.
Yeah.
They often call it the Notebook or the Death Note, which is what the solution I would have gone with as a translator as well.
So the Death Note is the proper noun to describe it.
Yeah.
And the lowercase regular noun is that it's a notebook.
It's the Notebook, yes. Yes. If you write a person's name in this notebook, they will die 40 seconds later of a heart attack.
Yes.
You can also write the means of death, if you want to say hit by a car, you can specify that. You can specify the time of death within certain limits.
Yep.
I can't remember what those limits are. There are a lot of rules. As the thousands of pages of these 12 volumes go on, they keep adding more rules.
Yes.
A lot of them are at the end of chapters, and they're just filler. Like, they have nothing to do with anything.
The longer the manga goes on, the sillier the rules get, because they've kind of covered the ones they need to cover for plot purposes.
That's right.
So eventually it's like, you can't kill babies.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You can't kill people over 124 years of age.
Stuff that has nothing to do with anything that happens in the plot of this series. Anyway.
But, I mean, ultimately, you've got a dark human fantasy. The idea of killing at a distance.
I think this is the ultimate power fantasy.
Right.
I think this is...
Everyone's envisioned wiping out their enemies.
Oh, yeah.
It pops up.
Oh, yes.
This is not exclusive to this manga. I mean, there's a Star Trek episode where Captain Kirk in the alternate universe has the Tantalus device.
Right.
Do you remember that? That's how he got command of the Enterprise. He's able to use it to wipe out his enemies.
I don't remember that, but... it reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode with Bill Mumy where he's a little kid that can just do anything.
It's a Good Life. It's a Good Life.
Yes.
It's based on a short story, actually, which is excellent.
Right.
But I mean, there are numerous human cultures where any misfortune is attributed to people that possess the evil eye.
Right.
Or a malign power, which they're sometimes not even aware of.
Right.
And a lot of human energy and effort and imagination has been put into identifying, propitiating, cancelling the influence of people that can kill with spooky action at a distance.
Yes. Well, I think this is more of a power fantasy than any Superman or Batman comic or anything where Superman can fly around, he's super strong, all that kind of stuff. This, to me, was way more powerful because you could be a 98-pound weakling and use this thing to utterly transform the world, which is what happens in the book.
Right. Exactly. No one's going to struggle with this concept.
But also for me, I mean, I have power fantasies about changing the world. So this, as soon as I started reading this, I was like, oh, okay, this is like locking into my thing and probably into a lot of Shonen Jump readers as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there was a lot of press around the manga and later the anime and film that it was having kind of like a negative influence.
Yeah, because kids were walking around with their own death notes.
Yeah, and writing the names of kids, other kids they didn't like.
Yes, Arya Stark lists in their Death Notes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Arya Stark lists. And I think the sale of Death Note merchandise was briefly banned in China.
Right.
Because it was considered to have a socially destabilizing influence.
Wow, okay.
Kids running around writing their names in one another's Death Notes.
Okay, so what happens is this kid, this high school student named Light Yagami, picks it up randomly.
Yes.
And on a lark writes a name in the book of a guy. He sees a news report about this killer on the news, and then he writes a name, and then 40 seconds later that guy has a heart attack.
Yeah.
He hears on the news, and he's like, oh, holy shit, this thing actually works. He's got an odd name.
Yeah.
It's the kanji for moon, but it's pronounced Raito, which also sounds like right or righteous, but we're kind of stuck with the light, which is, light versus dark.
Yeah, that's how it's translated in every version of it I've seen. Yep.
Every version. He is a super genius. He's like maybe the top student in Japan.
Yeah. And the top tennis player in Japan.
Yeah, one of the top. He's an absolutely top tennis player.
Yeah.
The notebook comes attached with a demon creature, a Shinigami, which
god of death. That means literally, I believe.
A death god. Yeah. Normally, if you see a Grim Reaper, like with a scythe in anything, and you translate that into Japanese, it would be translated as Shinigami.
Okay.
So it's kind of similar concept. This thing that goes, but these Shinigami, what they do is, people have fixed lifespans, which according to fate. Yep. You're destined to live. But sometimes they will come along and kill a person early, and they steal their lifespans to extend their own. And they do that by writing names into Death Note.
Yeah.
He has dropped one onto Earth.
One of this demon that's attached to this particular notebook.
Ryuk.
He's called Ryuk. Yeah.
He's called Ryuk, and he has actually cheated his way into a second notebook.
So it's not his own notebook.
No.
He's dropped it. He's acquired a second one, as you say, and he's dropped it. Does that mean he's
still carrying his around?
Yes, okay. Right, because it's attached to his belt.
Yes. He's still got his, and he says one day he's going to write Light's name in his book. Right up in the opening chapter now, right away we've got a Faustus setup. Because Light says to Rook, are you going to steal my soul or something like that? And he says, and Rook says, well, misfortune befalls anyone who uses the Death Note, any human who uses the Death Note.
Yes.
And someday I will write your name in the book.
Yes.
And he's like, whatever, okay.
And then it doesn't come into play for 1,000 pages.
That's right.
Yeah. It's interesting. You brought up two things. So the idea of a power fantasy and this idea of a Faustian bargain. Two thematically rich kind of concepts, which are immediately abandoned. Yeah. I think...
No, I know the power fantasy's there because he wants to change the world.
Yes, he does, but...
He starts killing every criminal.
Yes.
Well, because he wants to make a world...
He decides he's going to... Yeah, as you say, he's going to eliminate all criminals.
Yeah.
And that will create a world where no one will commit any crimes anymore, over which he will reign...
As the god.
As the god, quote unquote.
That is a power fantasy.
Yes. But it's never explored. And... I mean, we never really see that world, and...
That is an interesting point, because we do... This is not a series where all this stuff is happening secretly in the background. It is actually changing the world. People know that some super being, some paranormal entity, some god is killing criminals.
Yes.
And so we get...
But the manga spends very little time on what people think about it.
Oh, yes. You're right. Exactly right.
All the... You know, we never really see we don't really know what it means for him to be the god of this new world. It's never explained.
No.
We never see the world that he's trying to create, except very, very, like 1 or 2 pages, maybe the crime rate's going down.
Yes. No,
Instead, the comic is exclusively concerned with the cat and mouse game between the police and Light.
Yes.
In that sense, the comic is essentially kind of like a Sherlock Holmes story.
Yes.
So imagine there's a Sherlock Holmes story where Sherlock Holmes' adversary...
It's about Moriarty.
Yeah.
Moriarty gets the Death Note.
Except Moriarty can kill with his mind.
Yes. Yes.
Now, because Sherlock Holmes is Sherlock Holmes, you know, eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable must be true, Sherlock Holmes would immediately figure out that he's confronted with a guy that can kill with his mind.
Yes.
And then he would set up a scenario where that guy who can kill with his mind would reveal his power.
Yeah.
That's the story of Death Note.
Yes.
For hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages.
Yes.
Sherlock Holmes is played by a character called L.
Yeah.
Another super genius, also a high school student. The most the most Shonen Jump thing imaginable.
Yes. Yes. And that's also a power fantasy. To be the ultimate detective. The guy that can solve an unsolvable case.
Yeah.
This guy, because especially I think for like 6, 7 volumes, they assume that it's some telepathic power that he's killing with. They don't know about the notebook.
No.
They don't know they have to write names down. They don't figure that out until I think they actually see it.
No, they have no idea. Of course, they can't know about the notebook, but they very quickly figure out rules. So, I mean, the power is circumscribed by the rules that exist in the note. You know, you have to know the person's name.
Yeah.
You have to have seen their face.
Yeah.
You can only kill within certain restrictions. You can't kill a person in a way that's impossible.
Yeah.
You can't kill a person living in Japan in Brazil. They can't die in Brazil if they live in Japan, unless you say they die in Brazil in a month. Then they can get there. So I suppose the drama comes from the Sherlock Holmes character L slowly uncovering rules.
Yes.
And in contrast, Light slowly discovering new rules that L hasn't discovered yet.
Yes.
They're constantly kind of trying to catch up with one another in that way.
Yes.
Plus, Light is embedded in the team that's trying to uncover...
Yes, well, this comes up so...
So it's as if Watson was the guy who could kill with his mind.
Right. So we learned very early on that Light's part of the reason he knows he can get away with this. It's revealed probably 20... By the way... He finds the book, and we get the rules within about 5 to 10 pages. It's really amazing, like, out of the gate.
Yep.
Here we go. Very high concept immediately. And I also want to mention there's a whole thing where Ryuk has dropped this book into the human world out of boredom.
Yes.
He's bored with the Shinigami realm.
Yeah.
And Light is also...
Bored. He's bored too.
He's bored, but he's also, like, sick of the world. There's a kind of fatalism or nihilism about it. Japanese teen kind of things that adults worry about Japanese teens, that they're really...
right. That
they're kind of nihilistic or whatever.
Right.
So this is like the worst possible person to find this book, right? Because normally a person finds the book and they're just going to like kill their neighbor that's annoying them or something. They're going to kill one person.
And then it gets figured out quick and then they die.
Yeah, or at the very end, I think somebody points out that if normally if a person finds a book and they use it once, they'll be so disgusted with what they did. It's like Richard Matheson's The Box kind of situation. They'd be like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that.
Twilight Zone reference.
And then they would never use it again. And then Rick would take his book back to the demon realm.
Yeah.
But we got a very different situation here. Anyway, so Light's father, it turns out, this is again very early on, 30 pages in maybe, we discover he's the head of the National Police Agency or something, like he's deputy director of...
And is in charge of finding...
So
Light has all this insight into the procedure, so we're always... It's what helps him stay... So there's a constant game of cat and mouse.
Yes. And you always think they've got one up, you think one guy's beating the other, but he already had a plan in place to beat that plan, which he predicted that guy would do. By the way, we never mentioned the creators, which were... the story was by Tsugumi Ohba, who is a very mysterious, anonymous character. This is his first comic that we know of. Maybe he wrote 100 comics before this under a different name.
Yeah.
And the art is by Takeshi Obata. I just wanted to mention that because Ohba claims that he was writing this thing chapter to chapter and did not have it all planned out, which is an amazing game of 3D chess.
Very clever.
But
I believe it because it's just because... As I said, the way it kind of works out is someone will discover a rule, and then L will discover a rule.
Yes.
L will discover a rule, and then Light will discover a way to use a rule that hadn't occurred to him before. So I think Ohba is... I believe it. I mean, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Ohba is clearly brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's an understandable progression that's occurring.
Yes.
And in fact, as you say, at the end of volumes, he'll often write in the new rule that...
I think the progression is... so something we haven't talked about is, once we get into this battle of wits between L and Light, it becomes... even before that, it's just tons of internal monologue.
Yes.
Just tons and tons and tons. There's so many words on a page of people thinking, their internal thoughts of... And it's all, if I know that he knows that I know, that kind of stuff.
It's very much like that.
There pages and pages and pages. And especially after volume 8 or so, it really... I started to lose track.
Okay.
And...
Well, by volume 8, L is not present anymore.
Yes.
We have two new Ls.
Two new Ls.
Both of whom have their own agendas. But I've kind of written out here a classic Light and L interaction.
Okay.
Okay, L and Light will be in the same room.
Yeah.
L will describe a situation and then think about the situation. He will then conclude that Light is or isn't likely to be Kira, the murderer. At which point, everyone else in the room will react and yell, "What do you mean?"
Yes. Yes.
Then L will explain.
Mm-hmm.
Then Light will explain his explanation while thinking about the explanation.
Yes.
They will then exchange heated glances.
Yes. Yes.
That's basically that.
Yes.
And it's utterly engrossing.
Yes. It is a page turner. It is gripping. I'm going to say up to volume 7.
Yeah.
After that,
coincidentally where I stopped this week.
Yeah. Well, after that, there's a big shift, I think, for the worse. I think it's 12 volumes, probably should have stopped. They should have found a way to wrap it up after volume 8. But it was such a huge hit, I'm sure the editors were like, keep it going, keep it going.
Right.
And
that happens, yeah.
And Ohba was coming up with these plot lines. So we'll go through a bit more of this plot. So if I can remember, and I've read this series 3 times, including rereading it this week, and I'm still like, you get to a certain point and you can't remember how they got there. Like, how did we get to this stage again? Like, it was such a long path to get there. So L is brought in as an investigator who can, quote unquote, he can solve any case, is what we're told. He's this awesome detective. Light, his alternate personality, his god personality is called Kira, which is Japanese sounding, sounds like killer. Mm-hmm. Also sounds like Kira Kira, which is the sound of sparkly shininess, which, relates to the light side of things as well. L, as a name, is same as Light, you know, they're kind of two sides here, having that first letter L there. We never learn what L's real name is throughout.
No.
Okay, so Kira as a persona they're starting to, some people are calling Kira the savior online and stuff, but as you said, we don't get a full view of the world, really.
Yep.
But L starts piecing, it's really clever. Like he figures out that Light must be based in Japan.
Yeah.
And he does this by having a broadcast on TV. He announces himself, he says, I am L, and he says his name. And so the part of the thing about the book is you have to picture the person's face while you're writing the name. That way you don't kill somebody who has the same name.
Yeah.
So now that he's seen his face on TV and sees his name, he writes it down, and that guy dies, but that's not L. That was a death row inmate. That
It was all set up by L to
and
confirm his suspicions about how...
And it wasn't a worldwide broadcast. It was only broadcast in Japan, so that confirmed his suspicion. And he also...
And this is like a big bombshell at this point in the comic.
Yeah.
So we don't know who L is, but all that we know is that he's brilliantly...
No, in fact, we don't get it. We only get cameos of him. We never even see his face until sometime in Volume 2 somewhere.
All we know is that this guy is brilliantly narrowed down out of the whole world who could possibly be Kira, the guy killing people with his mind, to a couple of million people in Kanto region of Japan.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's like, whoa, who is this guy? How did he know all this? Yeah,
Yes.
It's cool.
And also he figures out that he must be a high school student because he's only killing people before 8 a.m. and like after 3 p.m.
Yeah.
He kind of figures, and on weekends.
Yeah.
Like that's when these criminals are dying. So he kind of pieces these things together.
Yeah. It's very Holmesian.
Yes. And meanwhile, Light is coming up with these crazy schemes to protect himself. Genius schemes. Like he has this whole trick drawer he's got the notebook in this sleeve with fuel in it so it'll catch on fire if anybody opens the drawer.
He never ever lets down his guard. His room it's not booby trapped, but his door has 3 different things to tell if someone's been in it.
Yes. And when the police actually go in there to set up surveillance, they're not smart enough to figure out all the things he's got. He figures out that they've been in there. Then he comes up with this crazy scheme to hide the fact that he's still writing in the book even though he's on camera. He's got like a bag of chips, and it's a bag of chips that nobody else in his family would want. So he knows that he'll have access to it.
Yeah.
And he puts it. He's bought this mini camera.
Flavor, but it was
in the movie. It's consomme.
Consomme. That's it.
But he puts the bag on top of the TV, so he's still watching the news report and getting names of criminals.
No smartphones in 2003.
They do have not smartphones. They do have cell phones.
He would have a smartphone and it would be way easier for him. He could use a smartphone.
Yes.
He has to go out and buy a miniature TV.
Yes, and then he puts his hand in the bag where he's got a page from the notebook, a piece of it in there, and he's writing with his other hand as he pretends to study. And he's writing names, so criminals are still dying, but...
so elaborate.
Yes.
And it's just, everything's like... So Light will have these unbelievably elaborate schemes to protect his identity and kill, and L will penetrate them every time.
Yeah.
Even though it should be... I mean, realistically, it should be impossible for L to do that.
Yeah.
How could he... But he does it because he's Sherlock Holmes.
Because he's yes. Yeah.
Because he has that brilliant deductive insight.
Yes.
And intuition. And it's fine. I'm there for it. It's really fun read.
Yes.
It's essentially kind of like a procedural, story.
I think because of all the internal narration, in a way it's not. You don't see them doing the work. There's so much of them thinking about, he thinks this about me, but I'm going to do this. He doesn't know that I've already planned this.
It's not really procedural. It's more like Sherlock Holmes' story, because we don't usually see Holmes doing the procedure. He will just tell you, he will figure it out, and then later
he'll tell you how he figured it out. Yes.
It's very much like that.
Yes. So I want to point out, I want to make a little comment about the art here. The art is very tight. It improves as it progresses. By the way, Obata had previously in the late 90s drawn a series called Hikaru no Go, which is about this kid playing Go, the board game Go.
Yep.
And he finds a magical Go board, which is possessed by this kind of spirit, this old ancient Go master from like the 14 or 1500s, who guides this kid through using...
It's very... This is the artist, not
the artist, yes. But it's conceptually...
It's very similar.
Similar, yeah. But I just wanted to point out that the criminals all have ridiculous-looking criminal faces. Like, they look so cartoonishly evil.
Right.
I just thought it was hilarious. There's little bits like that, but his art gets tighter and tighter as the series progresses. He said in the interviews he had different assistants for every, like one assistant for cars, one assistant for like tiny things, like somebody for everything different. So it was all really well coordinated. But anyway, I was just remembering because of all the criminals dying. Okay, so now we get at some point we get these FBI agents are secretly sent over from the U.S. A team of 12 agents to investigate because they're...
L figures out that that Kira must have information from within the Japanese police department.
Which he does.
Kira
by the way,
couldn't possibly be psychic and have just read that information from someone's brain.
No, by the way, Light... Oh, yeah.
L just always knows exactly what's going on.
That's a good point. Well, Light has access to his dad's computer or access to his dad's account, which seems crazy to me, like... But he turns out to be a super hacker, especially we learn later on. He's the world's best hacker, apparently, as well.
He's a super genius.
Yeah.
Just happens to be in high school.
That is a good point. Why couldn't he just psychically know? But anyway, yes. So anyway, go on.
No, you were going. You were talking. That's okay.
So he figures out that because there's a leak on the inside, he needs outside forces. He brings in the U.S. FBI, he calls them in.
Yep.
They send over 12 agents. They're investigating the Japanese police and the family members of Japanese police.
Yep.
So Light ends up with a agent on him named Ray Pember. By the way, all the names are hilarious, especially names of Americans or non-Japanese.
Yep.
And he said there's a funny thing in the interview where he says he tried to come up with like realistic names or names that could exist. I'm like,
Ray Pember is not a name.
No, Ray Pember. Quillish Whammy, who shows up later on, is like, okay. There's some really crazy ones. If you look at like the names that are written in the Death Note, sometimes like they're really bizarre, much like the criminals' faces, just made up craziness. So there's a very elaborate plan here to figure out. Okay, so another thing we have to talk about. As I mentioned, you need to know their face and their name.
Yep.
But if you see somebody's face, you don't know their name.
Yep.
Right? There is a thing you can do. You can get this thing called the Shinigami Eyes. You can make a deal with the Shinigami.
Yep.
Who's haunting the book.
Yep.
And haunting you. You can trade him half of your remaining lifespan to get these eyes, which no one can see, but they will allow you to see the person's name.
And remaining years that they have left, although that's less important.
Yes.
But you can see their name. Yep.
That's a key thing.
Although Light refuses
because he wants to live as a god as long as possible. Once his world is established, he wants to be there to rule over it.
Yeah.
This is what he says.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. It's interesting because every chapter or heading, especially in the early, maybe first 50 chapters, is a very Baroque piece of art. It's kind of like like a Musha piece, but like really Gothic.
Yep.
With all these like skulls and designs. But sometimes you'll see, especially if it's maybe not even chapter titles, but if he's talking about being the god of the world, you get this weird kind of Greek motif behind him, like Socrates speaking to a bunch of pupils or something,
or flying buttresses, or sepulchral arches, or skulls and altars. So it's all very anime Catholicism.
Yes, yeah. But anyway, I guess that's the extent of what he's envisioning for himself. I guess is what that's supposed to represent.
Well, it's never explored, and fine. And I actually think that's I think that's the strength of the.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really. Sure. Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's about is Light going to be caught, or is he going to get away?
Yeah,
with it?
It's really interesting because in the interviews in Volume 13, which is just the appendix book, it's called How to Read Death Note. Ohba says that he never went into the morality of it. Right?
I think that's plain, yeah.
Because it was aimed at younger readers, because it was in Shonen Jump. He said if it was aimed at an older audience, he might have spent more time of these characters talking about the morality of what.
Yeah. Light never defends his. He's never in a situation where he has to defend what he's doing.
Yes.
He never grapples with the morality of what he's doing.
No, until the very end, and even then, he only states what he's. Yeah, I'm building a new world.
That's at the very end. Yeah. Instead, he just says over and over, "I'm going to build a utopia."
Yeah.
No one challenges because he has to keep it utterly secret from everybody. No one ever challenges him on it.
And in fact, the only people he really interacts with are worshippers outside of Al.
Misa And he does interact with Ryuk as well, but Ryuk is uninterested in interrogating his morality.
Oh, and Ryuk is a bit of a dum-dum.
Yeah.
Like, he's a bit thick.
Yeah.
Right? As a Shinigami. Like, he doesn't know the rules that well, which I guess is maybe a narrative, a plot, like a way for Ohba to write around certain things that he hasn't worked out yet, is that Ryuk doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like, just Ryuk's too dumb to know the rules.
Yeah.
Which the other Shinigamis comment on. Like,
yeah. But all of this stuff is extraneous. Light's philosophy, his moral quandaries, his moral attitude. I mean, Light says he only wants to kill criminals, but he kills indiscriminately.
Well, yeah, he starts killing those FBI agents.
Because he kills the FBI agents. He comes up with a very elaborate scheme that eventually offs all the FBI agents because they're trying to investigate.
Right. Well, this is what I was getting to.
But he doesn't kill all the police that are investigating him, even though he has the opportunity.
But he wants to.
Right.
But he
knows...
Often he knows if he kills them, he will be the prime suspect because he's the one who knows who they are.
He can't kill L.
Yeah.
He can kill anyone in the world, essentially, except L.
Yeah.
But if he kills someone that L could trace it back to him, then it's game over.
Yeah.
Which constrains him enormously, considering he has the power to kill anybody at any time, as long as he knows their name and face. It's hilarious, because they'll be in the same room, and Light will be going mad with frustration that he can't get out of this situation because the guy who he's sitting right next to in the room, who he could reach over and touch, could bring everything crashing down. And I mean, L never stops suspecting Light. He's decided very early on that Light is Kira.
Yeah, and but he says it's like 7%. 7%.
He just makes up all these statistics, but I mean, he never gives up on the idea that Light.
That's right.
Is Kira. But yes, we never, it's not important. And also, the Shinigami, what are Shinigami? It doesn't matter. It's never established. What's their world?
No.
How does their power work?
Yeah, why does that world exist? All that kind of stuff is not relevant.
None of it matters. It's never explored. Because it's not a manga about world building. It's not a manga about themes, morality, ideas. It's just about... this is just like a Sherlock Holmes story.
Yeah.
It's just, is the criminal going to outfox the guy that is trying to catch him?
So...
And I, for one, never really identify with Light. I know some people do.
I certainly did. Like, as soon as the first time I read it, I was like, oh, yeah, making a better world. Like, that. If I could find a way to do that with the eyes, I would absolutely... With
the details are so lacking that you have to put in a lot of imagination to kind of imagine how it's going to eventuate. I can understand... Since I haven't read Volume 13, but it doesn't surprise me that Ohba said, this is for kids, so I don't want to talk about... Light being right or wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he's murdering people, that's bad, he needs to be caught.
Yes. And that is pointed out, I think maybe the morality side of it comes out in his father, who's the most noble character in the series. Yeah. He's a kind of Japanese Commissioner Gordon. He's drawn looking like Commissioner Gordon.
He does look like Commissioner
But he's really noble, and he's the only guy that's the whole way through is like, this is right and this is wrong, and Kira's killing people and that's wrong. And the other members of the force, even the investigative force, are kind of like, well, maybe, crime's down 70%, like, this isn't such a... I know Kira's a murderer and it's bad and we have to catch him, but... The world is better now.
It is mentioned in passing, but it's never really explored.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole reason we got here was he's turned down the eyes, so now he needs to find another way to find out people's names. So he has a very elaborate scheme to get the name of Ray Penber, the FBI agent. So he gets on. He plans a. He organizes a bus hijacking by using the book and writing the name of a criminal and says the criminal will hijack a bus. He's on the bus. He says...
Oh, he's discovered that you can use the note as long as the series of action ends in their death and is possible. You can make someone do anything.
Yes.
Anything. They lose all free will.
Yeah.
If you write in the book, so-and-so gets up, walks to here, picks this up, puts this down, then dies of a heart attack, they will do that.
Yeah.
With no volition.
Yeah.
They just essentially... lose all free will and are forced to do it.
Yeah.
As long as it's possible, you can make it do it. So it means that can manipulate people into doing all kinds of things.
Yes.
As long as they die at the end.
Yes. So
he finds out about a guy that did a convenience store robbery.
Right.
As you said, he makes him board a bus while he's being followed by the FBI agent.
So Ray, the FBI agent, is on the bus with him.
Yes. Who
had been following him, and Light shows a note to the girl he's on the bus. I don't think it was Misa. It was somebody else. He was on a bus.
It wasn't Misa. It's just he has many admirers.
He's a ladies' man. This is another thing which is very un-Shonen Jump like for this guy to have it easy with lots of women.
I don't know. I think it is kind of Shonen Jump in that he's utterly uninterested in women, but they're all over him.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh yeah, oh, yeah, wouldn't that be cool if all the girls were interested in me, but I was too cool to be interested in them because girls are a bit icky.
Yes.
Anyway, he's completely uninterested in women.
Yeah.
But they're all throwing themselves at him.
Yes. So anyway, he's on the bus with this girl. Ray Pember's sitting behind. He shows a note to the girl when the hijacker gets on the bus. He's like, I'm going to attack that guy. And the Ray Pember, who's following him, is like, I can't let this kid do that. And he's like, look, I'm an FBI agent. And
then Light says, how do I know you're an FBI agent? I don't trust you.
How do I know you're not collaborating with this guy?
With the hijacker.
So he shows him his FBI badge with his name on it.
Yeah.
And he's like, there we go.
He can now kill him. Except he doesn't want to kill him. He needs to find out the names of all the other... Because if he kills him, Elle will know that he was
the guy that was assigned to him...
died mysteriously.
So it must be Light. Okay, but he's also written this note that I'm going to attack this guy on a piece of the Death Note, which he crumbles up and drops on the floor, and the hijacker sees that, and he touches it. Now, you can only see the Shinigami if you've touched the Death Note.
If you touch a piece of the Death Note, you can see the Shinigami.
This guy, the hijacker, picks the note, and then he sees this monster, this demon. By the way, awesome design, iconic, right immediately. Like, I knew this design before I ever read Death Note of Ryuk. He's this kind of...
He's a cadaverous, gothic...
Looks like he has got hair like Sid Vicious. He's goth. He's got big black wings.
He's got a punk kind of outfit.
Yeah, punk outfit.
He's got an earring.
He wears earrings, yes. He's got earrings, yeah. He's got like the belt.
Yeah. Very cool.
Looks a bit like Eric Drake was in The Crow. A bit like that. And he's got a big, like, kind of Joker smile.
Yep.
And huge eyes and a goofy kind of grin. This huge grin.
He's always grinning.
Grin.
He's never not grinning.
Almost never changes his expression on his face.
He sort of has a slack-jawed grin in every panel. Like, he'll be standing behind Light when Light's doing Light stuff.
So this guy, hijacker, sees him and freaks out. And so everybody on the bus assumes that he is on drugs, I guess like a City Hunter character, and he's freaking out. And then he jumps off the bus and is hit by a car.
Yep.
So anyway...
And all of which Light had written in the
Yes, this is all written down in advance.
He said, the hijacker will hijack a bus. He will get on the bus. He will then see a terrifying apparition. He will shoot 8 bullets at the terrifying apparition. Then he will run in terror off the bus and get hit by a car, dying. Yeah. And it all happens.
Yes. Now...
And he couldn't have seen that terrifying apparition if he hadn't dropped a piece of the Death Note and then he hadn't picked up the piece of the Death Note and seen Ryuk. It's just really nuts.
It's a huge chain of crazy events.
It's not even over yet. It keeps going.
No, but yeah, and then now that Light knows Ray's name, he's able to kill him. But first he has another elaborate scheme involving going on the subway and writing. He's putting pages of Death Note in these folders with slots cut out. And he gets Ray to call a superior to email him a list of all the 12 agents, and then he writes those names in slots.
Yeah.
In those slots in the envelopes, so they're actually written on Death Note pages, and then all the agents die, including himself. But Ray's fiance, whose name was Naomi, I think.
Yeah, Naomi.
That's her real name. This
is even
he
better.
had told her something about the bus.
So it's not even over.
No.
He's told, I showed my ID to... She knew I showed my ID to a kid on the bus.
Yeah.
So she knows that. So even though Light's gone to all this trouble to wipe out all the 11 FBI agents, both Light and Elle are kind of having one of their long internal monologues, and they both think, all I need is one chance. Mm-hmm. I just need one clue. Elle's thinking, I just need one clue and then I'll catch Kidder.
Yeah.
Light's thinking, I just need one clue could bring me undone. And then we see Naomi. She's the wild card, the loose end. Mm. She knew that Ray was following someone on the bus.
Yeah.
She finds out who it is. She finds out that Ray was following someone on the bus that day. She tries to go to the police station. Horrible luck for her. Excellent luck for Light. Light is at the police station that day.
By chance, yeah.
And he's the one that runs into her.
Yeah.
He quickly realizes that if she talks to the cops, he's fucked. Because she'll tell them that that Ray was investigating him.
Yeah.
And he pretty much does it again. He quickly tricks her into revealing.
Yes, and he's got a piece of the Death Note and a trick. He's got his watch tricked out like a Batman gadget.
Oh yeah, it's got
like
a piece
a James
of the
Bond
Death
thing
Note
that
in
he
it,
pops open. He's got a piece of the Death Note that he can write her name in.
Because you can rip pages out and carry them with you, and it still works.
And she initially gives him a fake name, so now he's got to figure out her name.
Yep.
There's a bit of a scheme here where he's like, well, you can join the team.
If I just could have some proof
can you show me your ID or something? And she's like, actually, I gave you a fake name. Here's my real name. Then he writes on there that she's going to kill herself in a way that she'll never be found, and she walks off panel and we never see her again.
It's devastating.
Until volume 12. Well, it is double devastating because I was sure she was going to come back. I was sure there had been some secret plan by the police that they already knew about this, and they were going to save her because she doesn't die on panel. She dies off panel, and I was like, Eddie Campbell has this rule in comics that if you don't show it, it didn't happen. So I was like, well, she's got to come back, right? And she never did. No. She was dead.
You just hope I remember watching this in the anime and reading this in the book. I just think, no, don't tell him, don't show him that.
Yeah. Yes.
And then she does, and it's just such a blow.
Yeah.
Whenever I think of the show, that's what I think of. Yeah. I think of that moment when she's.
Yeah.
And she's, of course, once he writes her name in it, he says, "You're going to go kill yourself. You no longer care about your fiance. You no longer care about talking to the police. You're going to go find an unobtrusive place, commit suicide so that no one ever finds you."
Yeah.
And she just walks off with a vacant gaze.
Yeah.
And Light says, hey, I've got my dad on the phone. Don't you want to talk to him? And she's like, doesn't matter. Savage.
Yeah. I think this is I think we finally meet L at this stage, like actually see his face.
Right.
It's about halfway through volume 2.
Yeah, it's when the... Yes.
The task force has been reduced to 8 people because people are worried about being killed by Kira.
Yeah.
So Light's father, Soichiro, has been like, well, anyone who wants to quit, you can quit. And almost everybody quits except for 8 people.
Yeah.
They finally meet L face to face. They form this tight unit. He is what you'd call on the spectrum. He's your kind of a hacker type, shut-in, eccentric, slovenly.
He doesn't wear shoes.
He has bad posture.
He eats nothing but sweets.
Yes, junk food. Yeah,
he's got bags under his eyes. He's got bags under his eyes. He's got long, unkempt hair.
Yeah.
As you said, he sits in a funny way. He always has his knees drawn up under his chin. He says that if he sits differently, it will reduce his thinking processes by 40%. Yes. He's always throwing out nonsense statistics.
Yes.
Presumably to mess with people.
Yes.
Yeah. It couldn't be more different from the straight-laced, straight A, Yagami.
Yeah.
He's very preppy.
Yeah.
Always immaculately dressed.
Yeah.
And then you've got the slovenly L.
And I think this is
they play a game of tennis.
Yes. So this is a thing where, again and again in the series, just the thing you never expected to happen will happen, which is L should not expose himself to Kira, or to Light. But Light goes through his school entrance exams. He goes for university entrance exam, and L is there.
Yes.
And they both get the highest score, so they both give the
commencement
address. Miraculously, L's photo was never taken at any stage of this process, because even at the end of the series, they don't have a photograph of him. Because if you look at the photograph with the Shinigami eyes, you can get his name, and whatever.
It's crazy.
Then they play a tennis game, which is a real Shonen Jump kind of thing, where they're like, if I hit the ball over here, if I hit it right there, then he won't be able to return it from there. It's that kind of thing, but they're just thinking about the case.
Yeah.
Like, if he knows that I know that, why did he join this school? And did he introduced himself, I am L. And he's,
Yes. He's just, the one thing you don't want to do is show your face to Kira.
Yeah.
Because then you're halfway to being dead.
Yes.
Because all he needs then is your name. And yet, L just shows up.
But
not only shows up and shows his face, but then tells it, because he's trying to psych him out, rattle him, trying to shake something loose. Because he knows he's Kira.
There's a hilarious spin here where he's named himself in school Hideki Ryuga, which is apparently the name of some sort of pop idol.
Yes.
So Light is like, well, this could be just a stand-in for L again, as he used before.
Yeah.
So if he writes a name, he's going to think of the pop idol, and that guy's going to die, not this guy. So that's all part of this cat and mouse thing that's going on.
Incidentally, my eldest, Felix, he plays tennis every Saturday morning, and he is exactly like Elle.
Right.
He'll show up to a tennis match wearing long baggy... He won't wear tennis clothes.
Right.
He doesn't wear shorts.
Yeah.
He doesn't wear a t-shirt. He shows up wearing a long sleeve shirt and baggy pants, and he slouches there with no energy until the ball is hit at him.
Yeah.
And then he explodes with energy and starts playing tennis. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And they're both, like, awesome tennis players.
Well, they're both...
And, like, the tennis team is like, let's recruit
Elle was
these
the
guys.
British junior champion.
That's right.
Is the British junior champion of tennis a matter of public record, Kumar? Could Light just, look that shit up?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You'd think. But then he'd be like, did he use a fake name? Or,
Yeah, exactly. Wheels within wheels, Kumar.
Exactly.
Wheels within wheels.
Yes.
We've got to move on to the movie. We can talk about that.
Very, very quickly, I just want to mention a couple of things here. Dad has a heart attack.
It's a genuine heart attack, not
a genuine heart attack. And now we're introduced to a second Kira. Somebody else, like Kira starts announcing things on the news which don't sound like Kira, and we figure out that there's a second killer, there's a second book out there.
Yeah.
And at the end of Volume 3, this is revealed to be this girl, Misa, who's kind of she's a total airheaded ditzy character.
Idol.
Yeah. We don't really learn those details until deeper into Volume 4, but now we know that there's another...
She's obsessed with Kira. She worships her life?
Yes, she saved her life and also avenged the death of her parents. Her parents were killed by a burglar, and Kira killed them.
Killed the burglar.
Killed the burglar. And also saved her from an attacker, which she didn't know about. But coincidentally, the same girl saved her, but because...
She assumes it was Kira, but it was actually a
Shinigami that did it. And because of rules about Shinigami extending the life of humans because they love them... That causes that Shinigami to die, and she somehow gets that Shinigami's notebook out of this process.
Yep.
So that's kind of partway into Volume 4.
Yep.
And that kind of covers Movie 1. So we'll stop there. Next week, we'll talk about 4 through 7.
Yes.
Okay, but let's get to...
The film.
All right, so this is the first one. I think it came out in...
2006.
2006.
Early 2006. It went into production actually while the manga was still being published.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
Which is typical for... Not unusual for a Japanese film to be based on a manga that's still in progress.
Yeah.
Akira, we've already covered.
Yes. No, that's true, but this one especially, if you don't know how it ends and you make a mistake along the way. But I guess Ohba himself didn't know.
No. But, I mean, this film only covers the first, as you said, the first 4 volumes.
Yes.
So those were already published. The series is still going up to Volume 12.
Yeah.
But the ones that they want to base the film on are done and dusted.
Right.
So it comes out 2006?
Yes. I didn't write down the name of the director.
Oh, I've got it. It is Shusuke Kaneko.
Okay. And did you write down the name of the actor that plays Light?
I did not. But I did write down the name of the actor who plays his father, who is Takeshi Kaga, Chairman Kaga from Iron Chef.
Oh, I never put that together.
I'm surprised you didn't, because it was all I could think about.
Well, that's all I think about
now. Is the Iron Chef guy.
Yeah, that's all I will think about now, for sure.
Silent Greenuru!
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Tatsuya Fujiwara played Light.
Okay.
He might become an all-star on the show if we have access to the other movies that he's in. I think count at least 2 other
well, he's going to be in part 2 that we're going to do next week. So, I mean, he's already a twofer.
So, first of all, I want to say this is very thinky. It's very low on action, right?
Yep.
As we mentioned, it's a lot of thought, a lot of internal narration.
In the manga.
Yes. And it's a lot of 12 volumes of material to try to fit into 2 movies.
Yep.
I would say bad idea, and I would say ring the bell for that. Trying to fit a lot of plot and internal narration into 2 movies. I
thought Villeneuve did a pretty good job.
Okay, well, maybe. Okay, so it starts out with the notebook falling to Earth.
in a perfectly dry patch of ground surrounded by rain.
Yes. Did it not fall into a puddle?
No.
Okay.
I guess maybe the Death Note has the power to repel water.
Well, it's a bit mystical because the words Death Note appear on the cover
true.
slowly.
But I mean, apparently they didn't want the actual notebook to get wet, so they've got they've presumably got some fake rain and they've got an umbrella over the patch where the Death Note's going to get slapped down. Because it's funny, it's falling all around the note but not on it.
Right.
Then it pretty much...
Now it cuts to a lot of people dying, criminals dying.
Some people doing some heart attack acting.
Yes.
Not the...
Oh, yeah. Throughout this movie, there's a lot of heart attack acting.
And I gotta say, you can draw someone having a heart attack in a manga and it looks alright.
Yes. People
pretending to have heart attacks on screen.
Yeah.
It's not as good.
It's
very silly.
This is functioning in a very different way. Things that are fine in the comic book world look weird on screen in motion.
Yeah. None more so than these heart attacks, because these extras do not know how to do heart attack acting.
Yeah.
Some of them are foaming at the mouth, literally.
Yes. That's right.
I just wonder if the director's like this. I'm not buying this.
By the way,
put some foam in this guy's mouth.
There's a rule about the Death Note where if you say this person's going to die of cancer and it takes too long,
you can say, if I said you were going to die of cancer tomorrow and wrote that down, because you can't die of cancer in a day.
You're just going to die of a heart attack.
Yes.
It will default to heart attack.
But if you say you will die of cancer in a year, then that can happen.
But isn't there like a 23-day limit on effectiveness? Like they'll die in 23 days anyway? If there's something like...
I'd probably.
Anyway.
Probably. It's not very consistent.
I don't know why it can cause... I mean, what's causing the heart attack? That has to be caused by some...
It's magic.
Malady.
It's magic.
Yeah.
Magic heart attack.
Why can't you have a magic cancer on a guy that would kill him in 2 days?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Well, a heart attack is just the baseline.
That's all
no, you're right. None of it makes sense. Why doesn't Light just shoot L?
I don't know. So anyway...
They hang out all the time. Why doesn't he just write it in the Death Note? His dad shoots L and then himself. Bam.
Oh, yeah.
I just solved your problem.
But he doesn't know L's name. He doesn't know L's name.
My dad goes into work and shoots everybody in the office.
No, you can't use the Death Note to kill other people.
Oh, you're right, you can't.
There's a rule. There's specific rules about that.
I'd forgotten about that. You can't do that.
You have to list both people that are going to die if that's the way you're going to do it.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So much for my hack.
Yes.
So much for my anti-L hack.
Yes.
What if he goes in with dynamite and blows himself up?
No, he'll die of a heart attack. The rules are very specific about that kind of thing. If the thing that kills the person is going to end up killing other people, that person will just die of a heart attack instead.
Unless you put their name in.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's how it plays out in the film, actually.
Yes. So we get a lot of media coverage at the beginning. And we don't get the story of the bored high school kid and the bored Shinigami at the start.
No, different to the comic in that respect.
Yeah. So
we get what the comic doesn't have, which is people reacting to Kira.
Yes.
That's how we're introduced to him. We get lots and lots of shots of people talking about Kira, arguing about Kira,
yes,
saying if he's right or wrong, people posting on message boards, high school students chatting with one another about whether it's righteous or not, interspersed with lots of footage of people having very unconvincing heart attacks.
Yeah.
Yes, so here already a difference.
Yes, and we have a scene right at the beginning where Light, here, he's in like that big screen and outside of Shinjuku Station, I think, and the news comes on and announces the killer, and he pulls out the notebook in public and writes the name in it.
He would never do that in the comic.
That would not happen in the comic.
No, so we're already establishing that Light's a bit different. He's a bit older, for one.
Yes, he's already in university.
He's a university student, and he's passed the bar exam, actually.
Yes.
So he's well on his way to becoming a lawyer.
And he's some sort of ace basketball student in this.
Maybe, yeah.
He's like some sort of awesome... I thought the magic would come into that somehow to explain why he was so awesome at basketball.
Instead of being great at tennis, he's great at basketball.
Yes, but he's not playing basketball against L. Not in this movie anyway. Maybe next movie.
Yeah, maybe next movie he'll be playing basketball. But, it's easier with editing to make a person look brilliant at basketball than it is to make them look brilliant at tennis.
Right. But he has a girlfriend, Shiori, who's not a character from the comic.
Another thing that's different.
And he's talking to her about the limits of the legal system and how...
This is important, I think.
This is very much...
Here, Light has a motive.
Yes.
In the comic, Light doesn't have a motive, aside from boredom. He just randomly decides...
And wanting to improve the world?
He randomly decides he wants to improve the world. I mean, if the comic has a theme, which I don't really think it does,
Yeah.
but if it does have a theme, it would be power corrupts.
Right.
Because Light's pretty much a regular guy until the Death Note lands. I mean, he's a genius.
We'll talk about that next
Until the Death Note
week.
lands in his lap.
We will talk about that extensively next
And in fact,
Yeah.
Yeah, we will talk about it next week. Because once the influence... I mean, spoiler... no, I'm going to move
Here,
on.
okay, listen, I just want to say, page 1 of volume 1, the very first page of this comic,
It's the...
Light says the world is a rotten mess.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the first line out of his mouth.
That's true. But
You
it's
get the-
very quickly kind of moved... We move on from it pretty quick, I think.
I disagree. I think the whole series is him trying to make the world not a rotten mess.
I don't agree. I don't agree. I think that it's peripheral, essentially, just to the story of people trying to catch him.
Yes, it's perfectly absurd, but I think it's his motive the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think it's emphasised. I think it gets the ball rolling,
Yeah.
but we scarcely engage with it thereafter. But, right, you're correct to point it out. You're correct to bring it up, because our version of him in the film, the Light in the film, is much, much more serious about injustice than the Light of the comic.
Yes.
He's a disillusioned law student. Like, he's always talking about the inadequacy of the law. You know, Light in the comic, he doesn't care about what's the law. It's never mentioned. The courts, they're never mentioned.
Yeah.
Here, Light is a...
No.
Is a...
It's a really good point about, you talked about the world, how we didn't get the world. And I was like, well, how is it going to affect the world if there are all these deaths? Think about 70% of criminals dying. What about their families? Like, they would have kids, things like that. How does this affect lawyers, employment for lawyers and judges? How does it affect employment for undertakers?
There'll always be jobs for lawyers. But
there are repercussions which are not...
None of that matters.
That's not what it's about.
The only thing that matters is Light going to be caught?
I will say that this scene where he's talking to Shiori, where he's trying to say, he's talking about the limits of the justice system and how Kira is overcoming that, really, to me, played out like those scenes in the Nolan Batman movies where Bruce Wayne is in a restaurant with people and discussing Batman's tactics. But it's kind of the opposite, because Bruce Wayne's like, but I think Batman's
She's a vigilante.
He's a vigilante.
He's a bad guy.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, hilarious. But yeah, here's another thing that's different from the comic. Light never defends himself in the comic.
Right.
No one ever challenges him on what he's doing. But here in the film, Light is spending a lot of time justifying, although he's not admitting to being Kira with Shiori, his girlfriend. Shiori is anti-Kira.
Yeah.
And Light is defending Kira, and by proxy defending himself.
Yes.
So we're devoting quite a bit of screen time in the first half hour to establishing Light's motive for what he wants to do, why he wants to do it, why he feels he has to, and defending why he's doing it.
Yeah.
All of which I suppose is to make him a bit more interesting as a character, and to give him an arc. Because of course by the end of the film, he's become a bit more sinister.
Yes. So he's sick of the limits of the legal system, as we've mentioned a few times. He finds the book. He's got his book in one hand, which is a compendium of laws, and then he sees the Death Note on the ground, and he picks up the Death Note and he throws away the compendium first. It's a very on-the-nose moment in the movie.
The movie's full of stuff like this, frankly.
He throws away the compendium of laws and picks up the Death Note. One thing I like is we get this. The rules actually appear on screen, as in the comic where you get that full black page at the end of a chapter.
That's fine. That's
you get
cool.
a black screen. I like that. That was pretty cool. There's a scene where he goes full Batman, where he's like, okay, I'm going to be a vigilante, after he throws away a compendium. And he goes to this like dive bar and he hears this criminal, again, kind of very cartoonish criminals like in the comic. This guy's bragging about how he killed some child or something.
They're comically evil.
Yeah.
I mean, not just visually ridiculous like they are in the comic, but he's...
Yes.
The things he's saying is so dumb.
Yes.
It's like, I love killing kids. I love stabbing kids and listening to their parents complain, like cry and get sad, and then I just pretend I'm crazy afterwards, and I'm never going to jail. We're supposed to hate this guy, and we're supposed to want...
Yeah.
No criminal in the comic gets that level of detail about the depth of their depravity and evil.
No.
At this point, we're supposed to go, I want Light to kill that guy.
Yes.
Because that guy is a piece of shit.
Yes, that's right. By the way, I want to mention also in the comic, as far as we can tell from every criminal we've shown, they're all male.
Oh, yeah.
And there are almost no women in the comic. There's Naomi,
Shonen Jump, isn't
there's Misa. The entire task force is all men.
Of course.
The whole way through. Light is very dismissive of women, as we said, and we think, oh, well, he's the bad guy. And actually, that does come up as a kind of plot point. His manipulation of women does come up. But then other people are like, it's constantly like, that's a woman's heart kind of thing. Even like Matsuda says he's one of the guys on the task force.
Yeah.
I think the movie's a little bit of a corrective on that.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff.
We've got some more female characters.
Although this...
And there's female members of the task force.
Yes, which there aren't in the comic.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I do want to point out that Obata draws very distinctive faces. He's so good at drawing the faces of the characters in the comic, and you get so used to them looking a certain way for thousands of pages that when you get to this movie and nobody looks like anybody in the comic, you're like, it's unfair to accuse it of being a bad adaptation because the characters don't look the same, because they can't look the same, but it's really, I've never felt more distinctly that the characters don't look right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Even especially the Iron Chef.
Yeah.
Especially is like, that guy doesn't look like Commissioner Gordon.
No. No, he doesn't look like Commissioner Gordon.
And I don't get a sense of his, I don't get a sense of him being, his nobleness. You know,
no, he's a bit of a prick, actually. I
don't even know about that. He's just kind of a straight, narrow cop, but you don't get a sense of his feelings about right and wrong.
Sure.
Which you do get.
Well, that's hard. We're spending more time on Light and less time on. Yes. I mean, we've got 2 hours.
Yes, 2 hours and 6 minutes. Yeah. The point I wanted to make about this guy that he sees in the dive bar and then he decides to kill him is that they come to a train crossing and he writes his name in the book and the guy dies of a heart attack.
Yeah.
I'm like, you were at a train crossing and we didn't have a dramatic scene where this guy was killed by a train?
What's more, we get a rule, and the rule I think specifically mentions that you can write about you can write a method of death aside from a heart attack. And I'm like, well, that's foreshadowing. This guy's going to jump in front of the train.
Yeah.
No.
Weird.
He just dies of a heart attack.
So weird.
I was also really annoyed by that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an okay shot because he collapses. We just see his legs.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand why the director blocked it that way because it's a cool shot. There's a train between them. It's rushing past. We can only see him collapse, only part of him. But then why have the rule appear just
This is one of the
beforehand?
things where I bet in the script it said he's hit by a train, and then the budget guys came in and they're like, we can't afford a train special effect here.
I think that's not unlikely.
Which leads me to our next special effect, which is Ryuk. The CGI Ryuk. Now, I've never seen this movie before. I'd only seen stills from it, and I was like, boy, that Ryuk looks pretty cool. But when you see him in motion on screen,
he does not look
it's pretty cheap.
Well, this is 2006 CGI for one.
And it's budget Japanese CGI. This is not Godzilla Minus Zero era.
No.
This is some kind of attempt to put this CGI creature on screen like we've seen in every, Marvel movie up to that point. There's one full CGI character, or not Marvel up to that point, but...
No, well, I mean, say, we could talk about, what's contemporaneous? Something like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So, what? Lord of the Rings Return of the King, I think, came out that year or the year before.
A couple of years before.
Yeah, Gollum looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Ryuk does not look fantastic.
Well, no, this is a budget movie. The design looks good.
Yeah, he looks exactly like the comic.
Yeah.
Identical.
He has, except he has wings retract, which I don't think he did in the comic.
Well, we never see that happening. I mean, presumably they have to, because sometimes he has wings and sometimes he doesn't.
Okay.
So, again, here we are. It's like heart attack acting.
Yeah.
We have to see him go from one state to the other.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just looking at some screens.
But yeah, it doesn't look great. It doesn't. I'm curious actually to see how it looks in the 2017 adaptation, which we're going to get
to in a few weeks.
So I'll be very interested to see how Ryuk, because of course next week's film came out the same year, 2006.
Yeah.
Whereas 11 years later, I wonder if, and maybe a bigger budget.
It's a Netflix budget, so I'm not sure, but we'll see. Anyway,
I'm curious. So
Light tries to get himself put on the case.
Yep. But he won't. his dad won't let him join
Yeah.
the case. So here we are. This is a bit of a Chekhov's gun, which we'll return to. L shows up. There's some good visual storytelling where L reveals his thought processes as to how he has identified, first of all, that it's an individual.
Yeah.
We get some graphs and charts.
Yes.
And stuff, and it's good.
Yes.
It's good.
And initially he's only speaking through the computer, as in the comic. We don't see him for a long time.
Yeah.
And his voice is scrambled, which is all kind of from the comic.
Yeah.
And the L is always this like gothic stylized letter L.
Yeah.
On the screen of the computer that he's speaking through.
There's a cool bit where he superimposes all this data of times on top of one another.
Yeah.
And at the end you end up with this shape, which looks a little bit like an Among Us guy from that computer game Among Us.
Yeah.
And then someone in the room says, I know what that is. That looks like a university student's timetable. And of course that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because, they have a late start on Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Time off in the middle.
Yeah.
Longer days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
And it's just a great visual way of doing that, which you probably wouldn't have been as effective in the comic. And certainly they don't do anything like that in the comic. Instead, it's just
No, it's very hard to get two computer graphics merged together in a comic.
There's also a great bit where when L is trying to convince them that it's not a disease, like these criminals aren't just all giving one another a disease, because he shows you a kind of 3D representation of an epidemic.
Yes.
The way it spreads, and it's sort of a bell curve.
Yeah.
And he says, and here's the killings that we've got here, and it's all jagged spikes everywhere. And he says, this can't be an academic, because look at the difference between these two graphs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it's bullshit.
Yeah.
I can see that those two graphs are different, so I'm invested in this comparison.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. So we get the FBI agents sent over from the US.
They've abandoned Ray Penbar as a name, which was wise of them. Instead, he's called Ray Iwakara, I think? Or Iwakura, something like that.
Iwamatsu.
I was close.
Yeah. Interesting thing here is that all the other agents are clearly foreigners. I don't know how effective they would be as
They were just doing other stuff.
undercover tales.
Well, clearly they weren't. They were just hanging out. Maybe they were doing accounting.
Yeah.
Maybe they were doing financial,
I don't know.
forensic accounting, Kumar. Like they were just going through someone's books and then they died of a heart attack.
Yeah. But we get the sequence on the bus. Plays out pretty similarly.
Yep.
Shiori is the one on the bus with him. In this case, she's the character throughout. The girlfriend, she's the one throughout. Also, we get hints of Misa coming up as a
we see her being promoted on the bus that they get on.
Yeah, there's a big band advertisement for Misa Misa. Now, in the comic, we're introduced to Misa Misa, and it's like Ohba decided a few chapters later that she was an idol.
Yes,
she's just like some ditzy girl, and it's like, oh, maybe she's a little bit famous. She's a famous, semi-famous model, or an up-and-coming model. This is why I have no trouble
believing that he was writing it chapter by chapter.
But here, that's placed right at the front because we know it's been established in the comic, so we know that these hints are being placed. So he gets the name of Rei Iwamatsu.
Yeah.
Now he comes up with the scheme on the subway with the envelopes with the cutouts to write the names in. But
there's a difference here.
Naomi is there.
Yeah.
Now they're going to get married. There's a very bizarre sequence. This movie did things that I thought were so weird and then were explained later in a Death Note kind of way that I was like, oh, okay. But she's like quoting from Genesis. Yeah. They're in their hotel room and she's quoting. I'm like, what is this?
Why is she quoting scripture? It's because she's Catholic. She's
Catholic. They're going to get married. They're going to have a Catholic wedding.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, this is all weird shit to add to this movie. You learn later that they're trying to find shortcuts to plot. They're trying to cut down.
Here's another thing.
800 pages.
Here's another thing they do. With Ray, the FBI agent on the train, in the comic, there's a very long setup where Light has to convince him that he is Kira first.
Yes.
He's standing behind him. He convinces him he's Kira by killing someone nearby.
Yes.
With the notebook.
Yes.
To establish that he's Kira, then gets him to go on the train and then gets him to write all the names of the FBI agents. It goes through a whole elaborate process where he's getting him to communicate, ask his superior to send... No, he asks another agent to ask their superior to send all the names of all the FBI agents in Japan to him, and then he has to write down all the names while thinking of their faces, and then they all die at once, so on and so forth. Very convoluted. The film takes a great shortcut oh, I don't know if it's great, but the film takes a shortcut where instead, Light just uses the mind control power of the Death Note to do it instead.
Yes.
He just says, Ray Penbar goes on the train, writes the name of his boss on the Death Note, receives emails, writes the names of all his friends, dies.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
The only trouble with that is there's no need for him, Light, to be on the train with him, talking to him, which he does.
Yep, why do it on the subway?
Yeah, there's no need for it anymore.
No. Because there's a reason for that in the comic where, But the thing that's another key difference here is that Naomi is there in the subway because Ray said, I have to go do something. They had an appointment of some sort.
To see a priest.
To see the priest. He's like, I gotta go do something. She's like, what? That's weird.
She can't believe he would cancel that meeting because it's the meeting for the priest that's going to officiate over their wedding. It turns out he's cancelling that meeting because he's been mind controlled by the Death Note.
So she sneakily follows him, and then when he gets off the train, he dies of a heart attack, and she runs up.
And he points...
And he's pointing at the train because Light is in there.
Yeah.
He sees him there.
Light can never resist, in the comic, and of course in the film, Light can never resist showing up and gloating.
Yeah.
He shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's very out of character for him in every other way, because he's always so meticulous and careful not to expose himself. Yet when someone dies, when Light has gone to a lot of trouble to kill someone, he will always show up and grin at them evilly.
Yes, in fact, in the comic, when he kills Naomi, and he writes in the book, the last thing he says to her is, I am Kira. And then because he's already written her name, to kill herself,
there was no reason for him to do that. He didn't need to say anything. He could have just left at that point.
He just did it to glee in it.
To be evil.
Yeah.
But exactly. I mean, he's evil.
So he has seen Naomi there, right?
Yes.
So he in the comic, he didn't know. In fact, there's a thing in the comic where he threatens. He says he says to Ray over the radio, if you don't do what I say, I'll kill your girlfriend.
Yep.
He doesn't know that he has a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
That was a bluff, I guess. A lucky bluff. At that stage, he didn't know about Naomi. He didn't find about her until he met her at the station by chance.
That's probably a bit of a plot hole, actually.
I don't know. But anyway, in this one, he doesn't have to threaten her at all.
Because he's used the mind control.
But we don't know why Ray has gotten on the subway and done all this stuff until afterwards. And then you're like, because I wrote down in my notes, why the hell did Ray get on the subway in the first place?
I was like that too. I was watching and thinking, hang on.
He didn't threaten the girlfriend.
There's a missing scene here. He's supposed to have
No, they tell us afterwards.
Yeah. They've taken a shortcut. So, Naomi sees him die and she's suspicious because she knows that all the other, much like in the comics, she knows that all the other FBI agents died at the same time. She wants to get revenge.
Yeah.
So she goes to the bus driver, speaks to him much like she does in the comic.
Yeah.
He mentions that, he was interacting with this kid.
Yeah.
Good-looking kid, although I don't swing that way. Interesting piece of dialogue to put in the film.
There's a weird line like that.
She's also gone off the grid. It turns out, again, much like in the comic, she's a former FBI agent.
Yes.
Not only that, but in the film, she's a former FBI agent that knows Elle personally.
That's right. Yes.
Which is a setup for later on when she calls him.
Yeah.
But that's just mind-blowing to me. No one knows. She's worked with Elle. She has his phone number.
Yeah.
And she goes and confronts Light instead of just calling him.
Yeah. So I want to say, again, this is another thing in the comic where she was a former FBI agent that has now retired to get married.
Yes. She hasn't.
Right?
Yeah.
She's like, this is her function now. She's going to be a wife. She's going to be a housewife. Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's very Shonen Jump, isn't it?
Yeah. So.
And incidentally, she gets an amazing letter from the FBI after her husband dies, which I think the point of is to tell her not to go rogue and investigate it, but that's what she does anyway.
Yeah.
I need to read you this
letter
that she got from the ostensibly American
Yes,
FBI.
it's in English, right?
She should have been very suspicious of it.
Yeah.
Miss Naomi Misuda, your fiancé, Rei Iwamatsu, who is a member of Federal Bureau of Investigation investigator, died during the infiltration investigation in Japan. I mourn very much, if I imagine your anxiety. This investigation is very difficult and dangerous to win, and maybe extra you, but I advise that all impersonal investigation for this case is not allowed.
Think about all the extras, the American extras that they had. Just hand it to the guy. Pay the guy an extra $15. Hey, can you read this and fix it for us?
There were a lot of...
Kooky.
Very
kooky. But I guess, in story, in the comic, Ryuk has written the rules of the Death Note in English.
Yeah.
Which Light finds slightly annoying.
Yeah.
Even though his name is Light, which is like, what's going on?
Light finds it annoying, even though he's fluent in English because he's a genius.
Yes.
It just adds a kind of exotic touch to it.
So anyway, I guess in a way that is reflected in the FBI letter.
And another thing, it's like, you mentioned this film's heavy-handed kind of moments, symbolism, where Light is holding the compendium of laws and throws it in the dumpster, the literal dumpster. Shortly after this scene, he's sitting at a cafe and he's reading a copy of Nietzsche. He's reading Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil.
Yes.
So that's very on the nose.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess these are shortcuts.
Yeah.
Substitutes for pages and pages of internal monologue and stuff in the comic, I guess.
He's reading it in German too. He's not even...
Right. So Naomi has figured out this light. She, as you mentioned, she confronts him directly. Unlike the comic where she shows up at a police station.
She wants to talk to the cops. She should talk to the cops here too, but instead she goes and confronts the guy who she thinks is Kira in person.
And says, "You're Kira."
And she has L's phone number.
Yeah.
Just call L.
Yeah. It doesn't quite add up. A key thing that happens in the comic is that at this stage they think that Kira can only kill with heart attacks. But because of this sequence of events with Ray Pember, she's like, I think he can kill by other means.
That's her big...
That's her big thing that she needs to tell the cops.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing that Light is trying to stop her from doing. Here it's... I don't know if she's quite figured that out or what, but she's figured out that Light is Kira.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to get you back. Again, as you pointed out, why doesn't she just call Elle about this?
Or just talk to the cops. She's a literal FBI agent. Why doesn't she
Look, this thing is... The comic is a very delicately balanced Jenga tower.
Yeah.
Now you're trying to rebuild that Jenga tower into another Jenga tower. You're moving pieces around. You're in trouble. Yeah. Some of these pieces aren't going to fit. They're bits that are just not going to add up like this moment, right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't always make sense in the comic either, but because you're so invested in it, because as I said, everything's just so... There's just so many dominoes upon dominoes upon dominoes. You're just waiting with bated breath for one to fall.
Yes.
You don't even ask why someone doesn't just do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Oh, incidentally, while we're on the topic of crazy English... the name of Rei Iwamatsu, whatever his name was, his superior in America that he writes in the note is Miles Fitzgerald.
Yes, not Fitzgerald.
I don't think is a real name.
No, and in fact, there's a line of dialogue. What is it, the line?
No, there's a rule in the Death Note that if you misspell someone's name when you write it down, they won't die.
That's right. But I think there's a line where Light says to him over the radio, make sure you spell the name correctly or something like that.
He does.
And then he spells Fitzgerald without the G.
Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald.
It's not a real name as far as I know. So not only did he not... So it shouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
Because what Light did there was he wrote instructions. He's got this... It's all hidden under another piece of paper. He's got a cutout window that Ray has to write the name of his superior in. And underneath... the cutout window is a piece of the Death Note, and written on that piece of the Death Note that Ray can't see is a series of instructions which says, so-and-so, Miles Fitzgerald, will first send the name of all active FBI agents in Japan to Ray Pemba, and then he will die of a heart attack. And... unfortunately, Ray has written the name wrong, so none of that would have happened.
Well, but we don't know that he's written the name wrong because this comic has names like Quillish Whammy in it.
This is the film. Why didn't they just ask one of those extras they were paying? Hey, is Miles Fitzgerald a real name?
Yeah.
No, man, it's Fitzgerald.
Yeah. Okay, so now we get this whole... After Naomi confronts him directly... Now we get the sequence where he's not under... He thinks he's going to be under surveillance. He starts doing the thing with the bag of chips. He puts his phone in the bag of chips.
Yeah, it's miniature television, it's not a phone.
Oh yeah, miniature television in the bag of chips in the movie.
Yeah.
Not under the bag. But I think he was already worried about... was already writing names in advance in the book. Yes. He said, oh, what if I get caught, something happens, I need to write them in. So in fact, he didn't. Well, oh yeah, he does need to write names in the book because they need to.
He's written out dozens of names.
Yeah.
And they're all going to die at regular schedules for the next month or so.
Yeah.
So that if he's incapacitated or something, the deaths don't stop.
Yeah.
Because if he goes to the hospital with a broken leg and can't write in the death note and the deaths stop, Elle will know.
That's right.
And then he's busted.
Yes. And now he's under surveillance, but he has to keep writing names or they'll know that it's him because people aren't dying and he's not writing in the book.
No, people are dying because he's written them all in advance. He wants to rule himself. No, he wants to rule himself out of suspicion.
Yes.
By having people die when he couldn't possibly be killing them. So he's sitting at his desk, looking like he's doing his homework.
Yeah.
Some people die. His father.
But he's
Chairman
watching
Kaga
for names of new criminals on TV.
Chairman Kaga says, "Oh, great, people have died. It can't be my son."
Yeah.
And Elle says, "No, because we already know that Kira can kill at times when he is not."
Yes,
when he's doing something else.
Because he stupidly showed off.
Yeah.
After they
figured out he was a college
the school
student.
schedule, he's like, "Well, screw you! I'm going to have one die every hour."
Yeah.
And then stupidly revealed he had that power.
Yes.
Yeah.
And revealed that he knew what was going on in police headquarters too, thus triggering the surveillance of him.
Yeah.
So so Elle says, "Well, we can't rule him out because we know Kira can control the time at which person dies.
Yeah.
We won't be totally sure until new criminals who are announced and die while we're watching Light."
Yes.
And that's precisely what happens. And that's why he hides...
Right, okay. So then they think somebody else is writing those names.
Well,
so that rules him
because
out.
people are dying and Light doesn't know...
Yes, that's right.
They don't know he's got the telly inside the thing.
Yeah,
there's no way for Light to know
they're assuming
their
somebody
name.
else has done it. Yes,
yeah, exactly.
That's what's supposed to... Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that all happens...
But Elle suspects him anyway because at the end of the film he's eating chips out of the same bag.
Yes. Well, we'll get to that bit. Okay, now there's a sequence where...
flavoured chips.
This has happened after Naomi has confronted him, so you'd think he would prioritize that. But because they've had this thing where Naomi is now still alive, unlike in the comic, where she didn't confront him and he killed her. Here, she confronted him, but she's still alive, and he's not prioritizing finding out her name in some way or whatever.
But he is. We just don't know yet.
Well, he's still... Yes, but he's like watching TV and his bag of chips and
he has
all
bigger fish to fry because he's under surveillance here.
Yes, okay. Yes, he does know he's under surveillance by the pencil lead in the door thing.
Yeah, and then he asks Ryuk to look around and find all the cameras because Ryuk can phase through solid matter.
Yes.
So he can look through all the walls and find out where all the cameras are. Yeah. And there are dozens.
Okay, so then he gets a call from Shiori,
his girlfriend,
his girlfriend, who's at the museum where they've been on a date before in another scene earlier in the movie. She's like, "You need to come down here." And he goes down there, and
Naomi's there.
Naomi actually has her hostage at gunpoint.
That's right.
She has a gun. And she's like, what does she say to him? Like, you're going to admit that
you're going to admit that you're Kira right now, or I'll shoot Shiori.
Yeah.
Also, I'll tell you my real name, which is Naomi Masura.
Misura, I think, yeah.
And so, go ahead and use your power to kill me.
Yeah.
And then he gets out a pen, which is a total bait and switch because all of this was masterminded by him.
Yes. Which we don't know at this...
No, we don't know it at this stage. And then...
I'm like, why is this happening? As I'm watching the movie, I'm like...
Also, Naomi has called Elle.
Yes.
Whose phone number she has.
Yes.
Nuts.
She says she's going to prove...
She says, I'm going to prove that Light
is
Kira with my own death.
Yes. I don't know if... Does she say her own death, or does she say she's going to risk her life?
She says she's going to risk her life.
Yeah.
I'm going to risk my life to prove that Yagami Light is Kira.
Yeah.
She takes Shiori hostage. Shiori calls Light. Light shows up to the museum. She says, admit you're Kira or I'll kill Shiori.
Yeah.
Shiori steals the gun off her in a moment of confusion.
Yeah.
Runs towards Light.
Yeah.
Then, I guess, Naomi has another gun.
Did she take the gun off her?
I thought she did.
I thought she just got away somehow.
Maybe she just pushed it.
I can't remember.
I thought she got the gun off her, but maybe Naomi has too. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Naomi still has a gun. Naomi then shoots Shiori.
And she has a look of shock on her face that she has shot Shiori.
She's sort of holding her gun...
sideways in some weird...
gangster style, it looks like. I don't know
very
why.
weird for an FBI agent who would know to hold a gun with two hands if you want to hit anything.
Yeah, bit suspicious.
Bizarre.
But then again, she was being mind
But
controlled
it did not
at the
say
time.
hold the gun like a gangster in the Death Note.
No, which, spoiler, that's what's happened. Light has masterminded the whole thing to get himself onto the task force.
Yes.
To rid himself of Naomi and to get himself on the task force at the same time.
And get rid of Shiori.
Well, I don't know if he wanted to get rid of her, but he's decided that her death will serve him as his
Yes.
pass,
to serve, yes.
as his key.
He doesn't care if she dies if it gets
Well,
him
this
into
is when
the
he's gone off the
task
gone
force.
off the slippery. Well, he's used her death to do it.
Yes.
He knew. I mean, that's what Ryuk says. Ryuk says, Shiori, you messed up. You know, you set up this situation and then Shiori died.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, he wrote Shiori's name in the book.
Yes.
He says, no, it was all according to Keikaku.
Yes.
This was just as planned. I wrote Shiori's name in the book. I planned for Naomi to shoot her and then herself, ridding me of Naomi, and then I can tell my dad, because Shiori has died, I want to get on the task force. Once I'm on the task force, I will be able to identify and eliminate L.
Does it make sense that Ryuk would think that Shiori died by accident when that can't happen according to the rules of the Death Note?
People can die by accident, but I don't think Ryuk knew that because it's not Ryuk's Death Note, Ryuk didn't know that Light had written Shiori's name in the Death Note. But it doesn't matter.
No, but I mean...
People can die by accident. You had this very discussion.
He didn't think any of this was... He didn't know that any of this was written in the Death Note.
I think he knew that Naomi was in the Death Note.
Right, well, we have to mention how he knew Naomi's name, how he figured it out.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because
okay, you do this.
that was... well, somehow he figured it out that she was the fiancée.
She told him, unfortunately.
That's right.
She told him that...
But somehow he figured out that they were getting married in a church. And he went to the church and looked at the register.
It was because Naomi... It's all there. When Naomi showed up... they were just about to meet the priest.
Yes.
Naomi showed up to the train...
Yeah.
Carrying...
That's right.
The documents from the church.
That's right.
She dropped them on the ground.
Yes, and he saw them when he was standing in the train door. Yes.
And presumably the symbol of the church. He goes to once he found out that she was engaged and wanted to be married, he thought that must be where she was going to be married. He goes to the church, talks to the priest. The priest tells him her name because he has it in...
This is what Light should have done with the tennis championship register.
Yes, that's right. As soon as Al said I was the British junior champion, that's exactly what he should have done.
So this is a thing where you're like, well, why is all this happening? Why is Naomi holding Shiori hostage? You're kind of like scratching your head, and then at the end it's revealed this is all written in the Death Note because he had figured out her name, which we didn't know at that stage. We didn't know that he knew her name.
And it all seemed, so it's all tied up.
Yeah.
Except it's nuts. Except it doesn't make any sense at all. He just put himself in enormous danger because Naomi had called Elle to tell him that Light was Kira, and that if she died, that he should assume that it was because Kira did it, because she was putting her life on the line.
Light does show up at the crime scene eating a bag of consomme chips, which is another short... Elle shows up, which is another another shorthand way of the movie telling us what's going on. Elle knows.
Yeah, but now he just needs proof.
Because it's specifically, Ryuk had asked Light, how did you know your sister wouldn't grab that bag of chips? And he said, I'm the only one in my family that eats this flavor of chips, consomme chips.
Yeah. And then Elle shows up
eating the consomme chips, and it's such another on-the-nose kind of, ooh, you know.
I know. How could I possibly know this?
Yeah.
It's just the most nuts way
It's really... Yeah.
But, I mean, it's from the point of view of, I suppose, Light's character arc, it makes sense. Because Light has gone from being a passionate, very, moral person who's deeply concerned about the fallibility of the legal system to a person that then kills a bunch of FBI agents just because they're looking for him.
Yeah.
And then finally, at the end of the film, has murdered his own girlfriend just to have the chance of getting on the task force and sniffing out Elle.
Because he's like, I need to avenge my girlfriend that's been killed, and then
that's
Dad
why he killed her. It was his plan. What if his dad had said, nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you just killed your girlfriend for nothing.
Yeah.
You're as bad as all those. I mean, you're not. You're worse than all those.
I will say this is dramatically different. It's something we'll talk about more next week, but in the comic, he is gradually getting worse, but we don't really recognize it until Volume 7. Something happens in Volume 7, which we'll talk about next week, where you're like, holy shit, he was really bad. And we didn't really realize, well, I mean, he's killing the FBI agents and stuff, but we don't realize how much his personality has changed since getting the Death Note.
I think that's one point of view.
Whereas in the movie, it's there's a very clear 2-hour arc.
I feel in the comic he remains pretty static. Actually, I don't feel the same way. I don't feel as strongly as you do that his character changes over time. I don't think the comic makes much effort.
Oh, I'm going to disagree next week. Very strong. I think there's some scenes, especially around Volume 6, where it's very clear. We'll save it. We'll save it for next week.
I can't wait to hear. All right, but I'm going on record now that I think Light's personality is very static.
Okay.
He undergoes no kind of he undergoes no changes or.
I think part of it is because you see him get the Death Note from page 5. You don't see his life before the Death Note. I just think
the comic is uninterested in probing why he does what he does or what the effect of all his acts are having on him. He's just kind of
next week
does stuff.
Okay. Okay.
He just does these things because it's what he does, because he wants to make the perfect world. Yeah. And the comic never asks, is this worth it? Should you be doing this? Is the perfect world worth all this death? The death of innocence, etc., etc. It never, to my mind, it never does that. And I think it's a strength.
I think in Volume 12 he does kind of say is worth it.
Again, the beginning and the end, that hardly counts. Yeah. I mean, it's just... But yeah.
There is one more scene in here where we see Misa. We've seen her in a couple of scenes. Yeah. She's on some like TV cooking show.
Yeah.
And then she's like behind the scenes. There's this creepy crew guy.
Yeah, that's great. It's great.
Picks up like her. She blows her nose.
Tissue.
And he picks it up and saves it. And then we get a final scene where he's stalking her. He's chasing her. He's actually going to kill her and kill himself. Another very cartoonish character.
Yep.
The way this guy talks about it. It's very much
I did like how
just an actor delivering these crazy lines.
I did like how he pinched her, how he got her tissue out of the bin and saved it.
Yes.
I was thinking, what is this?
Yeah, yeah.
Why is he doing that? And
I kind of picked up this is the creep that's going to attack her.
Right. Okay.
So he attacks her, but then he dies of a heart attack.
Yeah, he does.
And then another Death Note falls out of the sky, a different Death Note.
This one doesn't have Death Note written on it. It has some kind of alien text.
Yes, that's right. Much like in the comic, her book had the alien text on it. They copied the design and the fonts exactly.
And then the film ends, basically.
The consommé scene comes after that, I think.
Oh, okay.
And then that's the end of the movie. Okay, do we have any trivia about this one?
Only a little bit. Okay, I couldn't find any figures for how much this film cost to make.
Okay.
I don't think it was very expensive.
Okay.
But it did all right.
Okay.
It made $31.3 million US, most of which it made in Japan.
Okay.
But a little bit it made overseas, primarily in Asia. So in Hong Kong, South Korea, and Singapore. It didn't have a proper theatrical release in the West.
Right.
In the US.
Yeah.
I think it sort of had a kind of novelty
like a DVD release.
a DVD release and a novelty release in like one theatre.
Yeah.
But it was number one at the box office the week it opened, dislodging the Da Vinci Code, which at that week was the top film in Japan. So in the domestic Japanese market, it made 2.85 billion yen.
Okay.
Which makes it successful.
Yep.
Very successful, but not in the top 10 Japanese films for that year.
Oh.
If you're interested...
No, go ahead.
If you're interested, the top Japanese film for that year was Tales from Earthsea. Which made 7.65 billion yen.
Right.
It's not very good, but it was made by Miyazaki's son, so I guess people turned out for that.
There's a funny thing, I might have shared it in the Facebook group already, but when the year Avengers Endgame came out, there's a chart of all the countries, and the number one movie in every country that week.
Yep.
Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
Like 30 countries, except one Japan.
Yep.
One of the Detective Conan anime movies was number one.
One of the top 10 movies of 2006 was the Detective Conan movie.
Right.
Though not number one, as I said, because that was Tales from Earthsea.
Right.
Interestingly, the fourth most successful movie of 2006, Japanese movie of 2006, in the Japanese market was the sequel to this film, Death Note.
Okay.
The Last Name, 5.5 billion yen. But we'll get into that next week. If you're interested, foreign films blew all the Japanese films out of the water that year.
Okay.
The top foreign film was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Okay.
It made 11 billion yen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have much else. The film's official premiere was in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Unusually, the first Japanese film ever to premiere in Hong Kong. I found an interview from 2007 with the director where they asked him a couple of questions. One of the questions they asked him was he required to follow the plot of the manga precisely?
Okay.
To which he replied, yes.
Well...
He said the annoying thing was the holder of the copyright, who I assume are Ohba and Obata, told him that they were not allowed to change any Death Note rules specifically.
Okay.
Which he found annoying because apparently he would have liked to have changed rules maybe to tell his story a little more easily in the 2 hours.
Yeah.
And he found it frustrating because, of course, as I mentioned, the comic was still being written when he was filming.
Right. Yeah.
And, of course, they were introducing new rules all the time.
Yeah.
And he thought that was a bit hypocritical of them.
Yeah.
That they got to make new rules and he didn't. The other thing that he mentioned was that he conceived of Light's character as being kind of much more moral.
Huh, okay.
He said that he has a very high standard of justice, is how he puts it out. He's studying law. He has a very high standard of justice compared to the guy in the comic who he said was bored to death.
Right.
And that's why he does what he does. They ask him, would Light have been corrupt if he hadn't found a Death Note? And the director says, no. Without the Death Note, if he didn't see the Death Note, he would have been a very successful, high-spirited, high-moral, standard lawyer.
Okay. That's interesting. The lawyer thing is interesting. I don't think he becomes a lawyer in the comic. His ambition in the comics is to become head of the police agency.
That's right.
That's it. From the beginning, he's like, even before the Death Note, he's like, someday I want to become head. He doesn't want to become a lawyer. There is a character in the comic who is a lawyer around volume 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. But he ends up with the Death Note, and he's crazy, insane. He's killing people for, like, litter books. Like...
He kills people for trying to profit off Kira's name.
And he's just filling the notebook every night. He fills 2 pages of it.
Delete.
In tiny writing. And he's a lawyer. He's like a prosecutor.
Yeah.
So there's a weird thing going on there that they put that job onto Light in this movie.
I think there's probably a non-zero chance that character didn't exist when they started making the film.
Of course, yeah. That's true, of course. Yes, of course that's true.
Alright, that's all I have for trivia.
Okay.
Shall we do our votes?
Yes.
Comic, Kumar, yay or nay?
Okay, this is a yay. Now, we've only talked about the first third. Next week we're going to talk about the second third.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to talk much about the last third. I've read this 3 times now. The last third, I have no interest in it. Every time I'm like, why are we done? Why is this still going? Spoiler, L dies.
Yeah.
In Volume 7. He's
Volume
replaced...
6, actually. End of Volume 6.
Was it end of 6?
Yeah.
Replaced by 2 guys who are basically also similarly...
They're just L.
They're just on the spectrum guys. Might as well just be L. Why have we done this? And it just drags on and on. A bunch of new characters are introduced. Could have been tied up. Now, so those last 4 volumes, I find frustrating. Very frustrating. However... I recommend everyone read it through to Volume 7, because I think 7 especially is great for reasons I'll talk about next week.
Yep. Well, we can vote on the volumes we read for this week, 1 to 4. And
those are some of the best
volumes.
ones.
For me, it's yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, you're so invested in it.
Yes. It's really mind-blowing.
It's such a house of cards.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything, you take away one thing and the whole thing would fall apart, and they're just, I know he knows that I know, but I don't know.
How are they going to get out of this one? How did they get into this one? Yeah. And then they get out of it, you know, and...
It's great.
Yeah, it is really great. Yeah, surprising.
How about the film?
I think it's a nay. I really wonder who this movie is for. In terms of if you had read the comic... Is this for people who haven't read the comic and the anime? Because the changes are so dramatic... that to me it's not like a new, fresh take on the material. It's like this is for a substitute for people who can't be bothered watching 37 episodes or reading 12 volumes. Here's 2 hours.
Right.
I don't know. It seemed I understood why the changes were there, but I didn't like the movie that resulted. I did not feel...
Well, you're anticipating your...
I was not invested in it the way I was in the comic, where I was like, every page was like, I can't believe this is happening. Oh my god, turn the page, turn the page. I was more like, what? Why is this guy here? I mean, as I said, they explain those things in the next scene.
Yeah.
But why did it work in the comic but not here? I don't understand why.
So now you're answering your adaptation question.
Yeah.
Not so much.
So I didn't know. It's a nay. I think it's a nay for me. How about you?
For me, it's the same. Also a nay.
Yeah.
I just think it's just not really very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you know, for me, I came in, actually, when I reread these volumes this week, I read all 12 volumes. I was like, actually, these movies are going to improve the comic because they're not going to hit volumes 8 to 12. They're not going to kill L. These are my predictions.
Yep.
I predicted they're not going to kill L. It's going to end with L versus Light.
Yep.
At the end of the second movie, it's going to have a better ending than the comic, was my prediction. I thought, 2 movies, maybe they can pull it off. Now, I'm not so sure, but we'll see how
it goes next week.
Yeah.
But yes, for me it's as I said, for me it's also an A. It's just not the character. It's just not super interesting.
Yeah.
Ryuk doesn't look very good.
You know, there were touches I liked. Like there's a scene where you see all the Japanese task force sleeping in L's hotel room.
Yeah.
Like sleeping on the floor. That's a great kind of touch that's not in the comic. Like, it's one of those things, like, you only get what they're thinking about the case.
Yeah.
You don't get anything about what kind of food do you like.
Yeah.
What kind of music is this guy listening to.
Yeah.
We get... It's
Nothing
especially ridiculous in the last third when we get one of the replacement L's. His whole thing is he's playing with toys all the time.
Yeah.
And there's some on-the-nose metaphors with the toys, but most of the time he's just, like, playing with Lego or something.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're just trying to put these visual things in there which don't really
substitute for a personality.
It's not even what does this guy feel about anything?
Coming up with
what are his romantic
this
interests?
guy's personality.
Anything?
Instead, this guy's whole personality will be he plays with dolls.
Yeah.
This other
panel
guy's
after
personality
panel
will be
after
that
panel.
he wears leather and eats chocolate.
He eats sugar cubes. He eats chocolate. Panel after panel, he eats chocolate. He eats chocolate. He eats chocolate. That's all we've got about that character.
Yep.
So I love this moment where we see all the FBI agents sleeping on the floor. Okay, that's what they're doing. That's how they're living their lives.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to guess that you're going to vote yay for adaptation, even though you didn't like the film.
Oh.
Is that correct?
No, I don't think so.
But you've just praised it for
Did I praised
for some of those little touches.
I like those touches, but it's missing the juice of the comic, right? The drive of it. I actually think changing. We have very different opinions about L's Light's motives.
Yeah.
But I think changing it to him being a lawyer, a Batman type that's like, the justice system is failing, I need to take justice in my own hands, is not what this... Now, would that comic actually make a good movie? Probably a question we should ask every week. In the first place, would that... concept of this comic, maybe not. You can't... So how long is this? 40 volumes? You can't make a 40 volume... Or 40 issues, rather. You can't make a 40-issue comic into a 2-hour movie. You can't even make it into 2 2-hour movies, can you? You've got to make changes. Yeah.
So, what kind of changes does this film make? Well, as you said, we get some characterization.
Yes.
The director said, we're going to look at the characters instead of the endless internal monologues and the he said, she said, I know, he knows, but does he know, I know stuff. Instead, what I'm going to do is look at motives and character. So that's why we start with Light. We know much more about him from the start.
Yeah.
We know nothing about Light of the comics except that he goes to high school. We don't know what his interests are. His only interest seems to be wanting to pass his exams.
Yeah.
Does he like books? I don't know.
Yeah.
What TV shows does he like? I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Oh.
Because the only thing that matters is that this Light has a girlfriend. A girlfriend that he has political debates with.
We do know in the comic that he wants, on New Year's Eve, he wants to watch the fight between Akebono and Bob Sapp on TV.
Which he does, actually.
And
there's a hilarious moment where Ryuk watches it.
Yeah, Ryuk is watching it, and he's watching it, and his thought is, the fight has just begun. He's thinking about his fight with Al. And then the fight is over on TV in seconds, and Ryuk says, that's it? There's like a parallel. There's a little
there is
funny
I
moment
think
in
that's
there.
fair. There is a parallel, and it's doubly funny because that actual fight only went for 2 minutes and 58 seconds.
And Nick is commenting on that.
Yeah.
He says it's over already.
Because, of course, Bob Sapp is a roided-up monster, and Akebono was a 37-year-old retired sumo wrestler, and Sapp beat the shit out of him in under 3 minutes.
So that's maybe the only touch we get in the comic. I can't think of another one of...
Right. And he doesn't even watch it. Only Root watches
that's right.
it. He
That's
just sits
true.
at his
That's
desk
true.
with his back to the television.
Yes, that's true.
But here, you know, it's also leaning into the idea that light is becoming corrupted over the time more heavily. That may or may not be present in the comic, but it's definitely present in the film.
Yes.
He kills his own girlfriend.
Yes.
So for me, even though I don't like the film, I'm going to say yay for adaptation because I think that they have made an effort to adapt it, and that effort has been successful.
You know, you're right, because I'm thinking about the Catholic Church substitution thing in there. Yeah, maybe I'll switch to yay. I think you're right. I don't like the movie, but it is the best way to go about putting this into 2 hours. You gotta chop this you gotta chop out the banquet scene.
Yeah, you're right.
No, you gotta leave the banquet scene in. That's unforgivable.
No adaptation is ever going to have the banquet scene.
No, the TV one
the
did.
TV, the miniseries
but it wasn't
did,
good.
Right.
It wasn't a good.
No adaptation is going to successfully pull off the banquet scene.
Okay.
Because everyone, it's just like Death Note. Everyone's just thinking about what everyone else is thinking.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
All right, please rate, review, subscribe. Please follow us on Facebook. My God, please follow us on Facebook. Kumar and I exchange memes all day in an echo chamber. And the only people that see them are him, me, and my mother.
Yes.
So please, come on Facebook and follow us. Follow us on Instagram for the reels, which Kumar promises will show up again at some point.
Come back in a couple of months. I'll start doing those reels again.
Twitter, we're on Twitter.
Yes.
You can contact us on email.
Yes, you can email us. The email address is in the show notes. We have received a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts.
The newly launched Apple Podcasts website.
The website. Now, I never had access to Apple Podcasts before.
Because you don't have an iPhone.
I don't have an iPhone. I don't use Apple. Suddenly, they launched this web app, and I saw that there's a very nice review on there from July 10th, which was, I think, right after our virus episode.
And what does the review say?
It says, this is from Charles Martel III. It says, excellent discussion about movies and their source material in comics and graphic novels. The hosts have great chemistry and both bring a lot to the discussion. Thanks for all you do, and it's 5 stars.
Brilliant.
So let's have some more like those, please. Or just send us an email or anything like that.
If you have criticisms, please don't post them on the Apple Podcast website.
Yes, and we have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion. We do need help with the hosting fees especially, and occasional books and DVDs and things like that.
And tune in next week for Death Note: The Last Word.
Yes.
The sequel to this week's film. And for volumes 4 to 7.
4 to 7 will be the key for next week. Okay.